Hello together.
Hello.
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 Hello, hello. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
Lots of us joining. That's very good. So while we are waiting for everyone to join our webinar, let's get to know each other a little bit. So we would like to know from where are you joining? What time is it for you? And have you already upgraded to PAM 4? So please write the answers in the chat. We can all review them. And it would be nice to know from which countries we have our participants today. And I see the first answer, Germany. Hello. Turkey, hello. Germany. Serbia. Nice, nice. Bulgaria, India, Italy, all over the world. Germany.
Buonasera.
And yes, Ukraine. For those who are joining, yeah, we are all writing in chat. Some small information about you, from where are you joining, what time is it for you, and have you already upgraded to PAM 4? So yeah, let's see the answers about upgrade. Do you already use it? Upgraded, I see, yeah. Someone not using it yet. Romania, good. Indonesia, nice. Still in transition, good. Never used. Let's wait a couple more minutes and we will start. Yeah, I see still people are joining, so I wouldn't like anyone to miss information. From India, yeah, upgraded. Good for you. Turkey upgraded. Yeah, so for most people it's already evening, right? Just some of you started the new day. Okay, I see lots of us have joined and shared information about you. So let's start slowly but surely. Yeah. Hello again, everyone. Welcome to our today's webinar on the topic information items versus documents in month 3. And before we start, I would like to ask you to follow some rules. You have the option to unmute yourself, but please stay muted during the webinar until the Q&A session starts. If you decide to unmute yourself for the Q&A session, be advised that this session is being recorded. We will have Q&A session at the end, and we will be happy to answer all your questions. You can put the questions into the chat as well, and we will collect them and in the end try to answer in our Q&A session. For the Q&A session, please raise your hand and we will call you so you can ask your question. Thank you very much. So welcome again for everyone who joined recently to our today's discussion on the information items versus documents in ASPICE month 3. Today, our speakers will discuss the difference between work products, documents, and information items. Why not every requirement in month 3 is solved by creating documents? How information items can exist as documents, tool artifacts, or even informal records like emails or meeting minutes. And we will present some real project examples like project plan, schedule, and communication record. At the end of the webinar, we will talk about the next webinar. Good. I hope this was clear for all. Yeah. And now I am going to welcome our presenters. And let me introduce myself. Yeah, let's start with short introduction. So my name is Olga. I've been with the automotive industry for over 4 years, and I work primarily as a certified Scrum Master and configuration manager. In addition to my Scrum Master responsibilities, I also actively contributed to several ASPICE assessments, specifically for the SAP 8 process, where I played a key role in achieving ASPICE Level 2 capability. I'm excited to have a great discussion today. Yeah, good. So let me introduce our host. Some of you may already be familiar with him, but for those who aren't, allow me to give a brief introduction. So this is Ronald Melster, known in the automotive world simply as Ron. As a principal ASPICE assessor, he helps organizations, projects, and people achieve their goals. He focuses on balancing structure and standardization with pragmatism and efficiency. His journey began in the 1990s when he studied computer science in Berlin and Edinburgh. Initially passionate about coding, he soon discovered software engineering processes, from defining software requirements to modular development and process optimization. And since the early 2000s, Ronald has been working in the automotive industry and became one of Europe's longest-serving ASPICE assessor in 2005. For him, assessments are more than just ratings. They're about empowering teams and explaining why behind the processes. He has collaborated with Bosch, Carmack, Nippon Seiki, Audio, Porsche, and here, influencing hundreds of professionals. And one of his biggest achievements was leading a Bosch development division with 7,000 engineers worldwide to capability level 3. Ronald is more than just an assessor. He is a mentor, coach, sparring partner, and he helps people not just understand the SPICE, but truly embrace it. Good. So this was welcome words for our host. And let me introduce Olena Lizina. She is an experienced project manager and product owner with over 10 years in the automotive industry. In the first 6 years of her career, she worked as a software developer, which gives her a unique perspective on a SPICE implementation from both the technical and managerial side. She has participated in multiple SPICE assessments for different projects and was certified as a provisional assessor to better understand the assessment from various perspectives. With extensive expertise in process integration and assessment preparation, Olena has hands-on experience in overcoming the challenges of a SPICE adoption and aligning teams to ensure successful implementation. Good, so let's start our discussion with our first topic, difference between work product, documents, and information items. So it took me ages to finally get used to calling it a work product. And now you went and changed it. So, Elena, how do you make sense of the difference between these terms?
Yeah, thank you. So I also used to call everything a work product. And frankly, I didn't notice that in PAM4 it has been changed until Ron asked me, how do I understand information item? So for me, it is like that. Work product, it is an output of a process. For example, for SWE1 process, requirements of work products. In SWE2 process, it is architecture and so on. Then document, it is something more technical, a container where different work products may be collected all together. It has some formal structure, header, history of review, approval. For example, communication matrix is a document or a review checklist. But then information item for me, it is something really tiny and granular. But still, for me, it is a bit tricky to see this nuance, a difference between them. Ron, can you share with us why the decision was made to change work product to information item and what is the difference?
Yes, yes, I can do this. A very warm welcome from my side as well. And thank you, Olga, for the introduction. I would like to answer your question with a story. When we started with Automotive SPICE back in 2005, we made the mistake to create a document for each and every work product which was proposed by Automotive SPICE, just to find out that we lost the overview very quickly. And then we had the idea we can combine information into bigger documents. And that's what we see now. We have a project plan, which we will talk about later, which is a work product or document, but not an information item. Unfortunately, I see companies and projects do this mistake over and over again. They create documents like quality criteria just to make the assessor happy. So the people defining Automotive SPICE, they've realized that work product is very similar to document, and now they start calling it information item and not work product anymore.
Okay, and this brings us to a quick question for all of you. So, do you consider a Confluence page to be a document or not? So I will raise a quick answer, a questionnaire in our chat. You can see in Q&A session on top, 2 options. So if you consider a Confluence page to be a document, you press yes. If you consider it not a document, you press no. If you go to Q&A, you will see these 2 options and you can vote for that.
And if you're unsure, you press both.
Yeah, if you're unsure, you can press both. Okay, so while the votes are coming in, let's take a step back and clarify something important. What exactly do we mean by the information item?
Yes, I still have not answered this one. The official definition is of information item a separately identified body of information that is produced, stored, and delivered for human use. So it's something which is transmitted between human and it's stored in some way. This sounds a little bit like the unit definition, the smallest entity which can be tested. And by the way, there is still the work product in PAM 4.0. And the definition is a work product is an artifact resulting from the execution of a process, just like Olena mentioned earlier. Let's consider an example to make it a bit clearer. A requirement is an output information of SYS2, System Requirements Analysis, and every other requirements engineering process like SW1 and HW1. A work product could be the requirement specification document containing all requirements for this respective process. For example, we can have a document called System Requirement Specification, which is a work product or document, or we may have even a work product containing all the requirements which are produced by the development project on each level. So containing the hardware requirements, the system requirements, and the software requirements, which I do not recommend, by the way. So to summarize, an information item is something very small which is stored in a document or in Confluence. So let's come back to the question we asked you about the Confluence page, if it can be a document in the sense of Automotive SPICE.
Okay, wow, I see. Still, most of the people, I see 4 thumbs up, said the Confluence is a document. So let's see if Ron agrees with that.
Here's the solution. Yes, a Confluence page can be a document under some circumstances. If there's a mechanism to approve the Confluence page and to baseline the Confluence page, then this version can be an official document which can be used by the project. If, on the other hand, the Confluence page is a living document, which I hear very often, then this page cannot be used as a document. You may ask why. Because a document needs to, no, the other way. A project team needs to know the constraints and rules which are described in the document, which is in the form of the Confluence page, for example, so that they can follow these rules and constraints. If the Confluence page is changed on a daily basis, then the project team will chase after these things which are defined in the document, and this is something we do not want.
Yeah, thank you very much for your thoughts, and thank you to everyone who shared your answers in the chat. And now I propose to move on to our next topic. Why not every requirement in month 3 is solved by creating documents, and how information items can exist as documents, tool artifacts, or even informal records like emails or meeting minutes. Olena, we've just talked about documents, work products, information items. So tell us, how have you seen information items take different forms in real projects?
Yeah, so it could be literally everything. For documents, for example, I have seen a Confluence page, Word documents, Excel documents, PDF files, even for architecture Markdown files in GitLab. Then if we talk about review evidence and records, what I saw, it could be a comment on a Confluence page that a review has been done, or for example, use a Checkamala plugin where you need to post a comment that I reviewed according to checklist, and there would be a record about that. Comment in GitLab merge request, or even a checklist, like check in merge request that I did it. Or comment in Jira task that a review has been done. When we talk about communication records, it could be email, or once we use the Teams channel, then we realize that it is not very convenient way, but yeah, we used to use the Teams to communicate changes. Confluence pages, different reports, or for example, video wall dashboard for test reports where everyone can access and know the latest status. I remember one extreme example when a project branching strategy lived on a whiteboard drawn with, markers, colorful markers, for some months until it was finally formalized in Confluence. Ron, how would you like that?
Oh, it was wiped out by the cleaning stuff. Okay, again, let me tell you a story. There actually used to be a rule or recommendation, I can't remember, in the VDA guidelines version 1. And this recommendation stated, yes, the strategy can be a whiteboard, literally. And then one day I assessed a company, and one of my co-assessors came from the company, and he insisted that I must accept that the strategy is not a real document by referring to this exact recommendation in the VDA guidelines. The thing was, this project had 450 people working on it. So no, I did not accept this. So this is not the use case for the whiteboard. For a small team, up to 5 or 10 people maybe, working in the same room, yes, it's acceptable. But for literally hundreds of people across the world, it's not acceptable. Why, you may ask? The strategy must be available for everyone who shall follow it. So it must be available when you need it and not wiped out on the Friday office cleanup. It must be baselined, which is very hard to achieve with a whiteboard. And there must be some kind of change history so that no one can claim, oh, I told you yesterday and was on the whiteboard yesterday. We need an official change history. And I think I mentioned already, it must be accessible to everyone who needs it, not just the one sitting in front of the whiteboard.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, as you can see, the way we store and share information really matters. So whether it is a high-level strategy or day-to-day communication. So that brings me to another question for all of you. So do you consider an email to be valid communication evidence in your projects? So again, I will launch our questionnaire in the chat. Quickly, I will post 2 options which you can choose. And please, go to Q&A section, vote for the selected option, use the vote button as previously, yeah. And while voting are coming in, Ron, is that what you had expected, or do you see it differently in practice?
Of course, an email is a way of communication between people, as I mentioned earlier. But the question is if it's a communication evidence in the sense of Automotive SPICE. Again, we are talking about availability. I've talked to many organizations which swore to me that they communicated the results of the test to the customer. However, they could not show or prove this to me because the person was on vacation or even left the company. So it's a best practice to store the email in some shared location to make it available to everyone in the project. Then 2 things happen. This mail becomes a configuration item, so it will be part of the item list according to sub 8. And the mail is planned by having some kind of communication matrix. And if this email is sent according to this communication matrix, then it would become a communication evidence.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so now let's see what our audience says about email as an evidence. And I can see thumbs up only for yes. So actually people said that email works as an evidence. So colleagues, now you know there are conditions when email can be accepted as an evidence. Good, good. Thank you for sharing. Let's come to another topic of our discussion today. Let's look at a few real project examples, like a project plan, a schedule, communication record, and let's see how they work in reality. Yeah. One more time, I will settle a vote for you. Project plan or project handbook? So still essential or ready for the museum? Let's define. I will upload this question to you and we can discuss. So here we go. Do you consider project plan or project book still essential? Please join our Q&A session. And while everybody is voting, let's hear what actually Ron thinks about whether this fits in the standard.
Yes, indeed, the project plan or project handbook is not part of the PAM anymore. So there's no information item called project plan in PAM 4.0. So one could think, no, we don't need this anymore.
Yeah, we can throw them out.
Okay. So, colleagues, our participants, do you need more time? I still see a slight difference. Some of the people say it's still useful, yeah, and some consider it's outdated, actually. So, Rowan, is that what you expected, or does your experience tell a different story?
Coming back to my statement, there is no information item called project plan. However, Automotive SPICE requires a lot of information, like, for example, the scope of work, the work package or work packages, the escalation path, and stakeholder groups list. I'm quoting exactly from the PAM 4.0, just to name a few. And what these information items have in common, all of them can be stored collectively in one document, or they can be distributed amongst several documents. That's up to you. And where should we record these information items, scope of work, escalation paths, etc.? It can be defined in a document called Project Handbook. So can we still use the term project plan? Or should we rename it Project Handbook? That's actually up to you to decide. The assessor has no right to decide what you call your documents. And I personally don't care if it's called Project Handbook, PMP, or Project Plan. What else can we put in that handbook?
Okay, so we could communication interfaces, external, internal, then we can add high-level project plans, milestones, team setup, why not?
So Olga asked if the project handbook or project plan is still useful. What's the benefit of having such a document? What do you think, Olena?
Yeah. Normally, we would like to keep all the high-level information about our project into one place. So then when you onboard someone or team members change, you have easier to find all the documentation in one place. It's like a starting point, like a wiki page about your project.
Shall we move on to the next information item, which is actually an information item, the schedule. It's an expectation by base practice 1, and you mentioned high-level milestones, which can be defined in the project handbook, but it could also be defined in a document like an MS Project, the old school way, or Jira, which can then be linked to the user story. Now, what's important to understand is the character of a schedule and how it's structured. In bigger projects, there are usually layers of schedules. The top level is the one for defining the overall project and the milestones and phases which are kept consistent with the customer milestones. And then you have one or two more layers, and these phases and milestones are detailed. And then we come to the lowest level, which is typically on team level. And this schedule defines the activities which must be performed by individual team members. And both of these schedules, the MS project or part of the project plan, and the team level schedule, are instances, I call them instances, of the same information item schedule. However, they can exist in different tools. For example, the overall schedule, as I mentioned, in MS Project or Airplan, while the team level schedule is typically organized in a tool like Jira.
Okay, thank you very much for that detailed explanation. We already touched a little bit communication evidence when we talked about email. What if I tell you that at very beginning of our project of 40 plus people, we used Microsoft Teams as a channel to post updates about architecture, new versions of architecture and detailed design. Would that be considered as a communication evidence?
Maybe. Yes, it is an information item as defined by Automotive SPICE, but just because someone sends something doesn't mean that another person actually reads it.
But it is the same with the email. You can send and another person will filter it out to trash.
Yes, and that's why we, as assessor or coaches, also recommend something else, that for some important documents, we, as in a project, should ask for explicit confirmation, something like, yes, I received this document or this information and I can confirm it. In other words, it's some kind of basic transmission protocol, send and then get acknowledgement.
Mhm. So does it mean that we're using some tool-based communication, for example, CI/CD, sending email, hey, new integration has been happened, it wouldn't be considered as right, proper communication evidence?
No, not necessarily. There's even a chapter in the VDA guidelines talking about tool-based communication. Just because this tool produces this information, it doesn't say that the people actually read it, because they, as you mentioned, they tend to delete or they even create rules so that this information is stored directly into the trash. So again, when we need, for some important information, we need a receiver. And if it's urgent or critical, we need two-way communication. That could mean picking up the phone and calling or sending a direct message into the chat. And if we talk about communication culture or convention, again, this should be documented in the project handbook. That's the team's preferred ways of communication, and they should be clearly defined.
Yeah, because in the end, everything must be documented. This is capability level 2. So, quick question for everyone. What types of communication evidence have you used or seen in your project? So there will be no voting for that. Just please share in a regular chat, type your thoughts. It would be nice to know, and we can share our experience and knowledge. While your answers are coming in, Ron is going to share something special with us today.
Yes, it's indeed very special to me. If you like this kind of discussions and the best practices we discussed in this webinar, then this might be something for you. And it's something I have been working towards for a long time. Maybe some of you know already, some maybe not. I've written a book. If I go to the right slide, there it is, about Automotive SPICE. And I'm very proud to announce that the book is available on pre-sales from this very moment. And you may know other books on Automotive SPICE where they repeat the base practices one by one and they comment a little bit. I have taken a slightly different approach. Of course, I still follow the processes because they are well known. So there's a chapter on best practices for project management, configuration management, etc. And for the engineering processes, I combined all the requirements management processes, because in the end, requirement is a requirement, and the expectations towards the requirements are the same, and most of the projects and teams even use the same tools on system level, software level, hardware level. And I combined the architecture processes, the integration processes, and all of the verification processes. And for all of these process areas, I start with the motivation behind the process. So why is it actually necessary and useful? Then I discuss the core activities. It's a little bit like the base practices, but I explain how it's done in the practice, what the teams actually do. So even with PAM 4.0, the first core activity will be define an approach or strategy for the verification. And the main part for all of these process areas is challenges, which I have observed in literally thousands of hours in assessments and coachings where the teams and people struggle with. And then I answer all of these challenges with best practices or solutions. And I have collected more than 100 best practices, which can help to implement ASPICE in a practical and efficient way. So you can get your pre-sales copy by following the right link. That's gets you to Stripe directly. If you want more information, you can use the link in the middle. It's a landing page where you get all the information on the book. And the first 100 pre-sales copies will be at a price of 36 euro. After that, the price will be on 69 euro. And I will be delivering the pre-sales books from September the 13th as a watermarked PDF via email, so it's an ebook. Thank you very much for supporting my work on this.
Wow, Roland, congratulations on that. This is really great. And thank you for sharing this with us. I think it's very beneficial for everyone who has joined today. Now, before we move into our Q&A, let's quickly check what our audience shared as examples of communication evidence. Yeah, let me see. So there were some answers in the chat. Most of the answers goes to emails. Also some notifications and tools, documentation in meeting minutes, communication channels, yeah, and so on.
In
Good.
Q&A section, I see Teresa added emails stored as configuration item and Jira emails specifically formatted.
Okay, thank you, Lena, for reading those options. Yeah, so, all right, now we are ready to open the floor for your question. Is there anything you would like to ask our speakers? You can turn on your microphone, ask directly. So there is no need right now to write in chat, spend some time, yeah? So you can raise a hand. If you're too shy, I will call your name. And let me see if I skipped, if there were already some questions in chat. No, for now I don't see any. So please, colleagues, our participants, you're welcome to ask your questions. Let's see. Everybody is shy. You can unmute yourself because by default everybody is muted.
While we are waiting for questions, maybe it is good point to discuss a comment from Joseph in Q&A session. When we asked about emails, Joseph commented that emails should not be accepted as they are not traceable. Ron, what do you think about it?
Yes, that's correct. And in Germany or in Europe in general, and there's the protection of personal data. So an email which is stored in your personal email mailbox is not considered a project document. And yes, you're right, it's not traceable because it cannot be identified. Just by having the date or the sender, that's not enough.
Right.
What if I print it to PDF? You know, I'm usually doing like that, print to PDF, and then I think it may be accepted, and if it's stored in
Yes.
some archive.
Yes, then you make a configuration item out of it by
Right.
printing it to a PDF.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I see more hands has written, but first one was from Evgenia, right? And then Joseph. So Evgenia, you can ask the question first.
Yeah, hello, Evgenia here. Actually, I have a question regarding this communication stuff. Because sometimes I'm here during the assessment that, okay, we have like project, I don't know, storage, like SharePoint or whatever. Everybody on project has access to it. So in this way, we are sharing our status.
Okay.
And actually, I have doubts that it could be accepted, but I would like to know your opinion.
Yes, you're touching one topic we have not talked about yet, which is push or pull principle. Is providing some information in the SharePoint sufficient, or do we need to bring it to someone? Again, it's a little bit like the sender-receiver thing needs to be defined. And for some important documents, there is the push principle. So putting it in a SharePoint is maybe not sufficient for all of the documents. But as you can see, this communication evidence is a very sophisticated topic.
But for example, it could be acceptable if, for example, software architecture release has been like, I don't know, communicated during project team meeting, and
Yes.
we have entrance in meeting minutes.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Someone
Now,
mentioned it in the chat. The meeting minutes mentioning this version of the architecture was presented to the team. That's a real communication evidence. But just putting the architecture into the SharePoint is not sufficient for some critical documents, and the architecture is one of them.
okay, and maybe some like sensitive topic regarding customers. Because as we know, customers are not actually really like to confirm something. For example, hey, please confirm this, like that you accept this release. And there are the cases that you can actually wait in, I don't know, in the future couple of months, for example. And during the assessment, it's for sure it's a weakness. But for example, could it be like more, how to say, weaker weakness, let's say, if this we have this entrance that, okay, we communicated to customer, but we don't have this answer from customer. The question is it a weakness, or if it is, so what is the risk? How can we evaluate it?
Before I talk about some mechanisms how you can get an answer, it's a risk to the project. How can you proceed if you have not gotten an answer for some decision which is about the scope of work, about some decisions which need to be taken by the customer? There is a trick which you can do. you put a deadline to the email to the customer. If you do not answer until this deadline, we assume that the answer is A or B or yes or no. And this most of the customer will react on this one.
It's like silence is a sign of acceptance.
Yes, which is actually a construct in at least in Germany. Silence is an agreement. So if the customer does not contradict, you can assume yes, he agreed, and you can proceed. And then it's not a weakness on your side anymore.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for the answer. And Joseph, you put your hand down. Do you still have a question?
Me?
No, Joseph raised second. The hand was raised by Joseph, yeah. So if you still have a question.
Yeah, hello team. It's not really a question, it's just an agreement with what was said regarding what happens with European law. The other thing is, yeah, by all means you can use an email. However, how do you manage the email trail if it is forwarded as a blind copy?
Oof, okay.
And then you have the problem of, is it acceptable or not acceptable? Because the traceability is then lost.
Yes, it is. I did actually a webinar just on project interfaces, which we talk about just now. In this case, not the other way around. For each project interface, you need a sender and a receiver, and which must be defined in advance, ideally. And in this case, this chain is broken. I agree with you. So if you send something to someone in blind copy, you do not really send it.
Okay.
And I think there's a question from Carsten.
Not a question, actually, a disagreement.
Yes.
I heard the wording "silence is an agreement," which I totally disagree with. I work in the topic of functional safety and cybersecurity, and there's a hard lesson learned that you always have to go for a no or a yes answer. Silence is no answer at all. If you want to check, please check Herald of Free Enterprise.
Okay. So yes, maybe I have to be more precise. This falls under the very important information where you have to have a confirmation and acknowledgement from the customer. My trick or method was more for things like not safety related, so you can proceed in your project, so to say. But I agree, for functional safety, you must have a written confirmation, even signed literally.
Thanks.
Thanks for the clarification.
All right, yeah. More questions coming.
Okay, so Audi from Indonesia. So I want to ask about the document which possible to be generated from the tool. I am talking about the Doxygen to generate the document from the source code here. Can it be considered as the sufficient document in the context of the Automotive SPICE if we are using the Doxygen-Generated from the source code, for instance, to be used in the code review and to be used in the design review?
You see me laughing already. You're touching the detailed design. Is the Doxygen, which is generated from the source code, a detailed design? There's a huge discussion going on in the assessment community. Some assessors will say no, and I will tell you why. The detailed design must be there before the source code. So if you generate the detailed design from the source code, you turn it the other way around. There may be a circumstance where the detailed design is part of your source code. So you have the actual source code, and then you have some comments which can be considered a detailed design, and then it's only extracted by Doxygen. So it highly depends on your storyline.
Okay. Okay, clear for me. Thank you.
Yes. Let's go on.
Good. I don't see actually any other questions in chat, but let me ask one more time. Maybe somebody would like to raise. No questions, I see. Okay, so thank you very much for attending the webinar today. I hope it was very useful. We had a productive session. And our topic for the next webinar in September will be how I wrote my SPICE book, a conversation with Ron Melster. So please join, ask your questions, just catch an idea. And we look forward to seeing you there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
participants. Thank you, Ron, for inviting me.
Yes, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Olga, for
Thank
Thank
moderating.
you, everyone.
Thank you,
Have a nice
everyone.
day.
See you next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Have a nice weekend.